picture this. You are 2 years from retirement, and for the last 10 years, you have earned a $20,000 bonus every single year without fail. Then, in an ordinary conversation with your manager, you mention you are thinking about retiring soon. Nothing dramatic, just a passing comment. 6 months later, your bonus structure changes. Your role gets quietly restructured, and the vesting date on your pension, the one you have been counting on for years, suddenly looks a lot further away than it did. Most retirement advice tells you to be open and transparent at work. Share your plans, build trust. Nobody warns you about what happens in that final stretch before retirement, when one sentence in the wrong conversation can cost you $30,000 or more and push your retirement back by 2 or 3 years you never planned for. You didn't lie. You didn't do anything wrong. You just answered a question the way you'd answer any other question at work. Honestly, without thinking about the consequences first. I've watched this happen to people who did everything right for 30 years, then made one small slip in their last 2 years on the job. This isn't about being dishonest. It's about understanding that the last 2 years before retirement run by a different set of rules than the 20 years before them. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 things you should never say out loud in those final years before retirement, and what to do instead so you protect what you've already earned. Here's the number that surprises most people. A typical year-end bonus runs somewhere between 10 and 15% of your salary. If you're earning $100,000 a year, that's $10,000 to $15,000 sitting on the table every December. Now here's what nobody tells you. The moment your employer knows you're planning to leave within the next year or two, that bonus becomes negotiable in ways it never was before. Your manager isn't trying to hurt you personally. They're managing a budget, and a bonus for someone who's walking out the door soon is an easy line item to trim. It doesn't usually look like retaliation. It looks like a restructured bonus formula, a reduced role that happens to come with reduced pay, or a sudden performance conversation that never came up in the 15 years before you mentioned retirement. Think about why this happens from your employer's side for a second. Bonus pools and headcount budgets get set months in advance, often assuming that senior, well-paid employees will stay through the full year. When you signal you're leaving, you quietly become what accountants call a controllable cost. Nobody has to conspire against you. The incentive to trim your number is just built into how the budget works. This shows up most often around what companies call performance improvement plans. On paper, it's a standard tool for underperforming employees. In practice, it's also one of the easiest ways to document a reason to let someone go right before a big payout, without it ever looking like age or retirement had anything to do with it. None of this requires anyone to act in bad faith. A manager filling out a budget spreadsheet in October isn't thinking about your 30 years of loyalty. They're thinking about next year's numbers, and a departing employee's bonus is one of the easiest numbers to adjust down. Here's the part that changes the math. If you lose 2 year-end bonuses of $12,000 each, that's $24,000 gone. Invest that same $24,000 for 10 years at a reasonable 7% return, and you're looking at roughly $47,000 in future value that never gets the chance to grow. Think about what that $24,000 actually covers. For a lot of retirees, that's a full year of property taxes and homeowners insurance combined. It's not abstract money sitting in a spreadsheet. It's the difference between a comfortable first year of retirement and one where you're second-guessing every withdrawal you make. And this isn't a rare story either. A well-known analysis by ProPublica and the Urban Institute found that 56% of older workers leave their jobs before they were ready, often pushed out through exactly this kind of quiet pressure, rather than a clean, voluntary decision. Here's the trade-off nobody spells out for you. Staying quiet costs you nothing. It just means one more year of small talk you'd rather not have. But telling the wrong person too early can cost you real money you were counting on to retire on your own terms, not someone else's timeline. This isn't about hiding who you are from your employer. It's about protecting the one thing you can't rebuild in 2 years, your retirement income. So the first rule is simple. Your exact retirement timeline is not workplace small talk. Keep the actual date to yourself until you're ready to walk out the door on your own terms. But salary is only the first thing worth keeping quiet. The next one might genuinely surprise you, because it involves someone you're probably supposed to trust completely with your entire life's savings, your financial advisor. Here's something that sounds like good advice, but can actually work against you. Share your net worth only on a need-to-know basis with your advisor. That sounds smart, until you realize the real question isn't how much you share, it's who you're sharing it with. Not every financial advisor sits on the same side of the table as you. Some are fiduciaries, legally required to put your interests first, no exceptions. Others are commission-based brokers, only required to recommend something suitable, not something that's actually best for you. Those are two very different jobs wearing the same suit. I used to think any paid advisor was automatically a safe pair of hands. I changed that after watching a friend lose $50,000 to a whole life insurance policy a commission-based advisor pushed on him right before retirement. Nobody broke any law. The product was technically suitable. It just wasn't right for him, and he didn't know to ask the right question before he handed over his numbers. Why does this trap catch so many people? Because the word advisor doesn't carry a legal meaning by itself. Anyone can put it on a business card. The actual duty they owe you depends entirely on how they're licensed and how they get paid, and most people never think to ask. So before you share your full financial picture with anyone, ask 3 questions. Are you a fiduciary 100% of the time? Not just some of the time. What's your actual compensation structure? Fee only, fee-based, or commission? And what happens to my accounts if you leave this firm? That last one tells you whether you're working with a person or a product line. A fee-only advisor gets paid the same whether they recommend a low-cost index fund or a complicated annuity. A commission-based advisor doesn't. That single difference in how someone gets paid can quietly steer the advice you receive for the next 20 years. Think about it the way you'd think about hiring someone to work on your house. You wouldn't hand over your bank account before checking their license. Your retirement savings deserve the same basic diligence, especially in the years when you have the least time left to recover from a bad decision. Here's the trade-off. Asking these questions up front can feel awkward. It might feel like you're questioning someone's integrity before they've even done anything wrong. But the alternative is handing someone your life savings on faith and finding out years later that faith wasn't enough protection. Once you've actually vetted the person managing your money, there's a document that matters just as much and gets far less attention, the one that decides who controls everything you've built if you ever can't make decisions for yourself. Take Bob. He's 62, an engineer in Ohio, 2 years from retirement. His son offered to help him keep up with bills, so Bob signed a power of attorney, the kind that takes effect the moment you sign it. 6 months later, his son withdrew $50,000 from Bob's account for what he called a business opportunity. Bob never approved it. But the document he signed didn't require his approval. It just required his son's signature, because that's what an immediate power of attorney allows from day one. Here's the mechanism most people never get explained to them. An immediate power of attorney hands over full authority right away. The ability to access your accounts, move money, even sell property, while you're still perfectly capable of managing your own life. A springing power of attorney works differently. It stays dormant until a doctor certifies that you actually can't manage your affairs, and you keep full control until that point. A springing power of attorney does mean one extra step: getting a doctor's certification when the time actually comes. That small amount of friction is exactly what protects you. It's the difference between a document that only activates when you truly need it and one that hands over the keys the day you sign your name. Most people never hear about the springing option. They're handed a generic form at an estate planning appointment, told to sign where the tabs are, and nobody mentions there's a version that protects them while they're still capable of running their own finances. Banks rarely question a validly signed power of attorney. That's the whole point of the document. It's supposed to work smoothly in an emergency. But that same smoothness is exactly what makes an unrestricted version risky if it's handed to the wrong person or handed over before you actually need it. This isn't a rare problem either. Financial regulators reported more than $27 billion in suspicious elder financial activity in a single recent year. Much of it moved through exactly this kind of unrestricted authority, often by someone the person trusted completely. Here's the trade-off nobody puts in plain language. Sign an immediate power of attorney without safeguards, and you're trusting one person completely, with no real way to check that trust while you're still capable of checking it yourself. Choose a springing version, maybe with a co-agent or a bank trust department involved, and you keep control for as long as you're able to use it, while still having a plan in place for the day you can't. If you already have an immediate power of attorney on file, you're not stuck with it. You can revoke it and replace it with a springing version in writing at any point while you're still capable of making that decision yourself. None of this means you shouldn't trust your family. It means the document should match the level of trust you actually intend, not just the default version a form happens to offer you. But even with the right power of attorney in place, there's one more thing that can quietly cost you years of income you were counting on. Imagine you're 63, and your manager calls a meeting to announce the company is restructuring. Your health insurance will run out in 18 months. This is exactly the moment where staying quiet about your own plans pays off, because the less predictable you are, the harder you are to push out first. Here's the first rule: never announce a retirement date at work, even an approximate one. If someone asks, a simple answer works fine. You're focused on your current projects and haven't made any decisions yet. That's not a lie. It's just not the whole picture, and you don't owe anyone the whole picture before you're ready to leave on your own terms. Second, know your own bonus and pension vesting dates better than anyone else in the building. Those dates are the finish line. Once you're past them, the calculation around you changes completely in your favor. Third, keep a record of your performance reviews and your wins, written down, dated, saved somewhere outside of work email. If you ever end up on a sudden performance plan in your last year or two, that record is what protects you. Fourth, keep your resume current and network quietly, through calls and coffee, not through a LinkedIn profile update that broadcasts to your entire company that you're job hunting. None of these 4 steps require you to be secretive about your career or your ambitions. They just mean you control when certain information becomes public instead of letting it slip out in casual conversation. None of this is about deception. It's about timing. The information is true whether you say it in month 1 or month 18. The only difference is which version of you is standing there when it comes out. The one still collecting a paycheck and benefits, or the one who already gave those up for nothing in return. I've been there myself. I stayed in a job I didn't love for 3 straight years, just to reach a pension vesting date. I'd get into the office early some mornings just to avoid the kind of small talk that could turn into the wrong conversation. It wasn't glamorous. But I knew the math, and that pension now pays me $2,400 a month for the rest of my life. Here's why that math is worth it. Only about 15% of private sector workers still have access to a traditional pension at all, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you're one of them, that vesting date isn't a minor detail. It's one of the rarest, most valuable dates on your entire retirement calendar. Losing health coverage 18 months early isn't a small inconvenience either. A private policy to bridge the gap to Medicare can run well over $1,000 a month for a couple. Money that was never part of the original retirement plan. We've covered 4 things now: salary, an unvetted advisor, an unrestricted power of attorney, and your own retirement date. The 5th one is the hardest, because it's the one you might actually be tempted to share in the name of being honest. We're taught that being open about a health challenge is a strength, that it reduces stigma and builds trust. That's true in a marriage. It's true with close friends. It's not always true at work, where your health history can quietly become a data point someone uses to judge risk, even if nobody ever says that out loud. You're not wrong for wanting to be honest. You're not being paranoid either. The 2 things can both be true at once. You can genuinely believe in openness and still recognize that the workplace isn't always the safe place to practice it, especially in your final 2 years before retirement. Here's a simple rule that protects you without asking you to lie about anything. Don't disclose a new health condition at work until after your bonus is paid, your pension has vested, or you have something in writing that protects your role. Talk to your doctor, your therapist, your spouse. Save HR for after your financial position is locked in, not before. Think about how differently this plays out for 2 people with the same diagnosis. One mentions it at a team meeting the week they find out. The other quietly keeps working, collects their full bonus, waits for their pension to vest, and only then loops in HR. Same diagnosis, same treatment, 2 very different financial outcomes. I don't know the specifics of what you're carrying right now, but I know enough to say this clearly. The system rewarding early disclosure the way it should isn't something you can control. Protecting your own timeline first isn't selfish, it's just realistic. This isn't about becoming a closed-off version of yourself for 2 years. It's a short, deliberate pause on a handful of specific topics, while everything else about how you show up at work stays exactly the same. So here's where that leaves us. 5 things worth keeping to yourself in those final years: your exact salary and bonus expectations, your full net worth with an advisor you haven't vetted, an immediate unrestricted power of attorney, your retirement date, and a new health diagnosis, until each one is actually protected. So there they are, the 5 things worth keeping to yourself in your final stretch before retirement. Your salary and bonus timeline, your full net worth until you've actually vetted who's hearing it, an unrestricted power of attorney, when a springing version protects you just as well, your exact retirement date, and a new health diagnosis until your benefits are locked in. None of this is about secrecy for its own sake. It's about sequencing. Say the right things to the right people at the right time, and you keep the leverage you spent 30 or 40 years building. You don't need a dramatic exit plan or some clever trick nobody's heard of. You just need to know which 5 conversations to slow down and which ones can wait until you're already on the other side of retirement. You've earned what you have. Protecting it for another year or two isn't dishonest. It's strategic, and it's exactly what the people who built real financial security before you actually did, quietly, on their own timeline. If you found this useful, hitting subscribe helps. It means the next video like this one finds you before you need it, not after. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.